Hello and welcome to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Dawson, and we are starting to get some real clarity on what UConn's roster is going to look like in the 2025-26 season. We discussed 2 weeks ago Silas Demery and his decision to commit to UConn, the Georgia transfer. I remain steadfast in the camp that I think he is a top 10 transfer that is going to be available in the market this year. And I don't know if there is going to be a better player available that would fit what UConn needed more. I think he's the best fit that UConn could have gotten, and I'm very glad that UConn decided to make that be their biggest investment of the offseason transfer portal to date. The bigger news, and to quote the legendary Trilly Donovan, sometimes the best gets are the ones you already have. And it is now official. Solomon Ball is returning to UConn for his junior season. Terrace Reed is returning to UConn for his second season with the program. Jaden Ross is going to be back, and Jalen Stewart is going to be back. Combine that with the four-man freshman classes coming in: Darius Adams, Braylon Mullins, Jacob Furphy, and Eric Ryba. And even before the news today, UConn had a very good about 9-man rotation there, right? There's still some holes that they have to fill, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But that is a good core. The biggest news we're waiting on is Alex Karaban, but we'll get into that in a second, because the news that actually did come down on Monday afternoon was that Malachi Smith, the Dayton transfer, will be joining the UConn program. He committed to the Huskies on I guess it was officially announced on Monday, but I believe it happened on Sunday night that he announced after his visit there. Smith is a guy, I've covered enough Atlantic 10 basketball. Smith is a guy that was a huge part of what Dayton has been over the course of the last 4 seasons, right? He was really good last year, averaged 10 points, 5.5 assists. He had 22 and 9 in a game against Iowa State and Maui. Has been an assist guy, a high level assist guy in the three of the 4 years that he was healthy. Another New York City point guard whose reputation has kind of been facilitator and creator. I think that he is, in the role that he is going to be asked to play, will be about as close as an equivalent as you can get to what Hassan Diar was the last 2 seasons for UConn. A change of pace, a guy that can come in and defend, a guy that can come in and give you a level of toughness, a level of leadership, a level of experience. He will be a 5th-year senior. He has played on some really good Dayton teams. He's won a lot of games playing at Dayton. And if you ask the people around the program, he is, something of the heart and soul of what that group is. Now, there's a couple of concerns that come with him, namely the injury issues that he's dealt with. He's got a knee that has not cooperated with him. He's got ankles that have been problematic since he arrived on campus. He missed the majority of the 22-23 season and came all the way back, got healthy, and lasted 7 minutes into the 23-24 season before he had a season-ending injury in the first game of the year there. So maintaining his health is going to be key, is going to be a priority. But as long as he is able to play and contribute, he is going to be the ideal 6th man off the bench, guy that can give you, 18 to 20 minutes that can make sure that when Solo needs to come out of the game, you can bring in someone that's going to be a facilitator, that's going to be a defensive stalwart, that is going to allow Silas Demery to play some time off the ball if you want to use him there, that can come in and play alongside Braylon Mullins and be able to allow you to have a shooter on the floor and a creator on the floor at the same time. He is going to be somebody that I think plays a big kind of leadership and locker room role, the same way that Haas was like the energy guy and the player that you can come in and just trust and not make a mistake when he got on the floor. the last couple of seasons in 23 and 24. And I think that that's exactly what Malachi Smith is being brought in to do, and being brought in to be able to contribute in the way that he's going to be asked to play. I really like the addition. I think that he was a guy that probably could have found his way into a starter's role at a lower level of a high major program. But he is making a decision in my mind to go to UConn and enroll at UConn and accept a role off the bench because of what it means for the opportunity to be able to win at a high level. And I don't think it hurt that he's seen Asandiara have success there. I don't think it hurt that he is a guy that grew up in the Bronx and grew up in New York City, and has kind of been a fan of the UConn program for a while. He comes from good pedigree. His older brother, Scoochie Smith, was a big time point guard on some of the Dayton's best teams. So really good piece, really good addition, really good player. And it's somebody that I think that UConn fans should be really excited about coming in. This is when it comes to the portal, right? It's not always about the biggest names, who spends the most money. Where we see the teams have the most success is who can find the guys that are going to be willing to come in and accept a role, right? At the end of the day, let's call it what it is. This is professional basketball. These are professional basketball players that are going to be getting a salary, that are going to be paid to play. That's where we're at right now in this sport, in the world of college basketball. And with that means that you are going to have players that are professionals being asked to accept a role, knowing that their NBA ceiling is probably somewhat limited, that they have a chance to be able to make a good amount of money and experience winning at the highest level in the college game. I think you look at what Mason Gillis did this year when he was at Duke, and going from playing a role for Purdue to playing a role for Duke, and probably making himself, mid six figures doing it. You look at what Malik Brown did at Duke. You look at some of the guys that accepted roles at Florida and at Houston, and kind of the way that kind of worked for him. Like that's what I feel like Malachi Smith is going to be able to do. We know that Silas Demery is going to come in and be the star. We know the role that Solo Ball is going to be able to play. And we know that Malachi Smith is probably going to be the guy that gets about 15 minutes a game off the bench. And that is exactly what I think UConn needs out of him. And if he is enrolling in this program at this moment, then he is a guy that, will be able to accept that. And I think the biggest thing is he's also someone where if an injury does happen to take Solo out of the starting lineup, or Silas Demery out of the starting lineup, he's a guy that has started at the highest level, that comes with a certain level of toughness, right? One of the things that I've kept hearing about UConn in the portal this offseason is that they are searching for toughness. There's a level of toughness that they want to be able to bring into this program that maybe they didn't necessarily have last year. And I think that Malachi is going to be able to provide that.
College basketball fans, are you ready to take your hoops game to a new level? Whether you're a seasoned bettor or just trying to win your March Madness office pool, Rhythm is here to give you the edge this season. With data-driven predictions for every single college basketball game left on the schedule, Rhythm helps you maximize your bets. And as March Madness kicks off, Rhythm's insights will help you spot those plucky Cinderellas that you know are going to shake up the NCAA tournament. But that's not all. When Selection Sunday rolls around, let Rhythm's AI-powered bracket generator do the heavy lifting for you. This is the same AI tool that performed 35% better than the average ESPN bracket last year. And here's the best part. Rhythm pairs perfectly with our Field of 68 expert analysis, giving you the 1-2 punch that you need for the rest of the college basketball season. So don't wait. Download Rhythm today and get ready to see college basketball and your betting results in a whole new light. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68. Bet insurance tokens, odds boosts, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two here or there. Be sure to keep your eye out in the app for the Field of 68 specials that we'll be running throughout the season as well. So go download the BetMGM app to sign up today.
There were another couple of moves that became official. I tried to teased them without teasing them and got burned on the solo ball news on the last episode of this podcast. But solo ball is coming back to school. Terrace Reed is coming back to school. Jaden Ross is coming back to school as of now. Sometimes that stuff can change if they happen to get recruited over, but as of now, those guys are all coming back to school. Let's start with Terrace because I think that was the biggest one, right? Like I think there is a real chance that Terrace Reed has I think there's some All-American upside there. And I think that there's like very real Big East Player of the Year potential there because of the skill set he has and because of the way that we've seen Hurley kind of take advantage of players that where you can throw the ball to them on the block and expect them to be able to go get you a bucket or get fouled. That's what Terrace Reed kind of does better than just about anyone. Now, he had big time offers from elsewhere, but he opted to come back to UConn. And same thing can be said for Solo, and we'll get into that in a second. But getting him back is he's another guy where he's now had a season to kind of acclimate to what is going to be asked of him in this system. And I think that being able to have a couple of years under your belt where you kind of know, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing in this set, and this is how they want me to play, and there's a level of expectation when it comes to practice, and there's a level of expectation when it comes to execution offensively and defensively and all of those things. He's experienced that now for a year. And I think more than anything else, I do think that UConn is one of the programs where that is something that has a little bit more value than elsewhere in the sport because of how complicated some of these sets are and because of how intense Dan Hurley has the reputation for being. So getting Terrace another year in there, I think is huge. Just a guy that can score on the block, a guy that can get on the glass, a player where when you're trying to run a lot of those sets offensively and defenses want to get out and pressure you, he's a guy where it can be something of a pressure release. You throw the ball to him on the block and it's going to force defenses to make a decision, right? Are you going to double? Are you going to let him try to go one-on-one and back you down? Are you going to dare him to try to beat you in the post? It's the kind of skill set that I do think a team that plays the way UConn plays needs to be able to have, and he is a guy that will provide that. I'm pretty excited about having him back, and I don't think that the hype train something that is getting out of control at this point. I've already seen him on some breakout player lists. I've seen him on some preseason All-American lists, and that might be pushing it just a little bit, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he ends up being one of like a second or third team All-American this season. I think the same thing can be said for Solo, right? Like the big thing with Solo is taking the leap on the defensive end. He took the leap offensively this year, and I think he's only going to be able to get better as he kind of develops a little bit of the off the dribble game and becomes more of a facilitator and not just a guy that is running off screens, hunting a shot, right? But if he can turn some of that elite athleticism into being good like he doesn't even have to be great defensively. If he goes from being the guy that you target every time down the floor to being someone that is good enough defensively that you can't target them every time down the floor, then that is a massive difference for UConn. I do think it also helps that with Demery out there, he will be able to get put on point guards. I think he's a little bit better at the point of attack than he is when he's being asked to kind of play off the ball and being in help side and getting put into rotations. I think he struggled with that a little bit. And, the fact that he'll be the on-ball guy with a bigger wing out there that can guard twos, I think is something that probably, I don't want to say probably, but hopefully we'll be able to help him make more of an impact on that end of the floor. And having Malachi Smith out there, I do think will help too, because in crunch time minutes, you can go to a guy off the bench that you can trust a little bit more defensively, I think, than what we've seen out of Solo over the course of his career. So the biggest thing is there's options, right? There's now options. There's now different weapons. You still have Braylon Mullins, who has looked good. I think that I would temper the expectations that he comes in and has like a Con Knipple kind of an impact this year. I think he'll probably be a bench guy. I think he'll be a good bench guy. I don't think this is going to be something where he gets buried and ends up, getting garbage time minutes. But I do think he will be somebody that comes off the bench and plays 10, 12, 15. He'll be a typical lower end 5-star freshman, right? The only way I see him not getting a lot of minutes is if UConn ends up being as good as they were in 23, 24. And I don't think that this is going to be the kind of team that is going to end up going like 37-3 again. I think there's too many good teams at the top level of the sport, and there are still some areas as of now that UConn needs to be able to improve. But I expect him to be a really good, impactful guy off the bench, and the way that he can shoot, the toughness, is there some athleticism there? That again, it's just another weapon and a different kind of profile. I think that's the thing. Now that I'm looking at what I believe is about as close to, I think their backcourt is set. I'll say it like that. I think their backcourt is set, barring having somebody kind of fall into their lap, like an Caden Smith or something like that. I think that this backcourt is more or less set, where you'll have Silas Demery and Solo Ball be the starters, and you'll have Malachi Smith and Braylon Mullins be the guys coming off the bench, and then somebody like a Darius Adams will be able to kind of work their way in here or there. I think he's a little more of a 2-3 than he is necessarily just a 2. I think that he'll be seeing minutes more in the role that we saw, like a Liam McNeely play this past season offensively and then defensively as well. But he's absolutely someone that can get some time there as well. Jacob Furphy, I think there's going to be a little bit of an acclimation process there. My guess is he's a limited minutes guy as a freshman that kind of carves out a role as a sophomore, and you see a real impact from him as a junior, maybe similar to what we're seeing out of like Jalen Stewart this year. But that backcourt is really interesting because you have different roles, different profiles, different kind of players. You can give them different looks. You can play bigger if you want with Silas and Braylon Adams out there together, or Silas and Darius Adams, Braylon Mullins, Darius Adams. How many times am I going to mess that up this year? Probably a million. Silas, Darius, and Braylon. You can play smaller. You can have a pure point guard out there with maybe a bigger wing. So the different looks and the different ways that they can play is something that I think would help. And then obviously on the wings, a lot of that is going to depend on what happens with Alex Karaban. And I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I don't think that this is going to be a decision-making process that will necessarily end all that quickly. I would really doubt that we saw Alex put his name in the portal. You can never say never with the way that the money's kind of flowing around here, but I really doubt that you would see Alex put his name into the portal. I think this is going to be a situation where he needs to decide if the amount of money that he can make this year in college basketball will be worth it putting off his NBA dream for one more season. And that's not an easy decision to make. I do believe that he will be able to make significantly more in college next year than he would be able to make in the NBA next year. But the question is, does he want to start finding a way to work in with a new program or a new organization and start trying to prove himself in the professional ranks? Or is it something where he wants to try to guarantee that he gets a higher draft pick? Because if we're calling it like it is, with the figures that some of these players that are returning to school are getting, like JT Toppin is, from what I've been told, is going to be probably netting somewhere in the $4 million range. And that's more than you get. Basically he's making more than most non-top 20 picks. And Alex is not going to be a top 20 pick this year. He just isn't, unfortunately. So I think there is an argument to be made that the best financial decision for him would be coming back to school, because based on the way that the market kind of played out, like I think you're probably looking at like maybe 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 for him at UConn next season. And if he can get that, that's more than he would probably make next year as an NBA player. And given the fact that Silas Demery is probably going to be the number one option, and Terrace Reed is probably going to be the number 1A option, and Solo Ball is probably going to be the number 1B option. You got 3 guys out there that are going to take the majority of the focus of the defense. Alex can slide back into the role that he kind of made his and he excelled at and looked like an NBA player at the 2 years where UConn won the title, where he's the fourth or fifth option, the guy that you kind of forget about, but the player that's out there just banging home threes, making the right passes, making the right decisions, switching and being effective defensively, and you can get him back to the bottom of the scouting report and allow him to rebuild that confidence and kind of rebuild his profile as an NBA prospect. And I think that if he does that, not only could he make seven figures next year, but there's a very real chance he can play his way into. I don't know if a late first round pick is going to be doable at this point for him. He's kind of a, those end up being the guys with the a little bit of a more of a ceiling than he has, but I think guaranteed money, top 40-ish, top 45-ish is something that could very much be in his future if he comes back and has a really good year. So I think it's the best financial decision for him, but like this at this point, like I don't know if it's just a financial decision, right? I don't know if this is something where he is going to say, I got to make every dollar that I can. It's a, am I done in college? Do I want to go back and play through being a focal point and a guy that kind of deals with some criticism and deals with the focus and kind of deals with what he had to deal with last year in college, which was not easy for him. And I think everybody that watched him play could kind of see that. So if this is a financial decision, I think that he would be back in school, but I don't think that this is strictly a financial decision when all of it's said and done. So hope to see him back. He's been a great UConn Husky and been someone that's been a lot of fun to root for. And I know there's at least one 9-year-old in my household that would love to see Alex Karaban back in UConn for another go round. So we'll see how that all kind of plays out. The last thing that I'll just kind of say here, right, is before we get, there's a couple more pieces that I think that UConn needs to hammer out. I think Jalen Stewart and Jaden Ross combined with Alex Karaban kind of provides enough at the 3/4. If Alex does not come back, I think they need to find someone that can compete with those guys for minutes. I would not be totally against allowing Jalen Stewart to kind of see if he can take over that 4-man role, and maybe give a little bit more minutes to Darius Adams. But I think absolutely they're looking for some more front court depth. Eric Ryba, he has not had the greatest senior season, right? And I do think that they wouldn't complain if they happen to find their way into another 5-man that could kind of compete with Eric for minutes. And I think another kind of 4/3, another big guy that, I would qualify both Jalen and Jaden as 3/4. Same thing with Alex. I think he's more of a 3 than a 4, but he's definitely a combo. And I think someone that could be more of a 4/3, if that makes sense. What we all thought Isaiah Abraham was going to come in and be. But someone along those lines, I don't think that they would turn that down either. But for the most part, like I think we have the main core there. It's just kind of, will Alex Karaban be back, and do they need to find someone to fill his minutes and fill his production and fill his expectation in that spot without him? So the last thing I'll say is this. When it comes to the teams that had the most success this past season, outside of Duke, the best teams in college basketball, the top 3, the 3 teams that made the Final Four, all had more than 60% of their minutes and scoring returning from school. Continuity is king in college basketball. We all get caught up in the hype of the transfer portal, and we all get caught up in the excitement of getting these new players coming in, and I think that is something that is not necessarily a bad thing, at least not for content companies like me, like the one that we run over at the Field of 68. But I don't think it's a bad thing for the sport that you now have reasons to be in the news cycle after the Final Four is over and after the NCAA tournament is over, right? And I think that it's good kind of overall for the attention that the sport gets. and the amount of people that are talking about it when it's not the height of college basketball season. That said, if you want to succeed in the world of college hoops, you have to do what UConn did in 24, what Houston did this past season, what Florida's done, what Auburn did. You kind of have to have your core, build around your core of returnees, and plug gaps in the portal. And I think that's precisely what UConn did. They got Terrace Reed back. They got Solo Ball back. They got Jalen Stewart back. They plugged the gap that they needed as a big lead guard. Got Silas Emery. They got a backup point guard spot filled. I would expect them to fill a couple of more gaps in their rotation. But this is similar to what we saw in the 2022-2023 recruiting class, where we all kind of knew it was going to be built around Andre Jackson and Jordan Hawkins and Adama Sanogo. And, you bring Tristan Newton in, you bring Hassan to be a bench guy, you bring Joey Calcaterra in to be a bench guy. You bring in, I'm blanking on his name and I apologize, the lefty from Virginia Tech. I'm not going to look it up right now because I'm recording this at 10:45 at night after a basketball and a baseball practice for a 9-year-old. But I think that that's kind of what we're seeing out of this group, right? You got the star, you got the Cam Spencer level transfer in Silas Demery, and then you brought back a bunch of returnees, and you're plugging the rest of the gaps with transfer portal guys, and in some cases with freshmen. And I think that's kind of the sweet spot for how you want to build a roster. I also think it's important to note, for all the criticism that Hurley got last season, for the way that teams, or the way that media kind of treated him, and the way that he was kind of painted, some of it came from our network as well, but the way that he was kind of viewed publicly last year and the season that they had, I think it is telling that all of the players that UConn wanted to have back are back. Right. And that's not to say that they necessarily wanted to see Ahmad Noel go, or they wanted to see Isaiah Abraham go. But I don't think that it is. I think the priority for this staff was get Solo Ball back, get Jalen Stewart back, get Terrace Reed back, and go and get a big point guard, go and get a top 5 point guard out of the portal. And that is precisely what they did. And now they are filling the gaps in around it. They've kept the transfer class, the freshman class intact. And I think it's a really good spot to be in. If Alex Karaban comes back, I think that this team goes from being kind of top 10-ish to being, top 7, 8, somewhere around there. I think if they add some more front court depth, I don't know how much the ceiling, I'll be frank, I don't know how much the ceiling can be for what they can be in the preseason. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how these guys all mesh. But on paper, this is a team that is, to me right now, good enough to get to a Final Four next season. And if it all comes together, if Silas ends up being as good as we thought, if the Solo takes the leap defensively that he took on the offensive end this year, if Jalen Stewart puts it together, if Jaden Ross puts it together, if Braylon Mullins and Darius Adams have the impact that we expect, and if Alex Karaban comes back, if all of those things happen, this is a team that's got a chance. So it's fun to be back in that spot. It's fun to be able to root for the same players again in an era where nobody has the chance to do that. And it is something where I am thoroughly going to be enjoying, kind of how the rest of this plays out, because UConn is able to do what a lot of programs are not able to do. And that is bring guys back, keep guys on the roster, develop talent within the program. And that is not something that's easy to do in the year of our Lord 2025 in the world of college basketball. So I'm fired up. I'm excited about it. I'm a little bit tired if you can't tell, but it's good to be back home. It's good to be back, coaching Little League baseball and coaching my son in basketball, who, by the way, he's caught the bug. He is a complete hoops junkie at this point. So, yeah, it'll be fun, man. I don't expect to do too many of these in the off season. I'm going to try to line up a couple more interviews than I did last year. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but I'm going to try to get some people on here. I will record again once Alex makes his decision. And if there is another big name transfer or another big name freshman edition. We'll see if that ends up happening. Then we will absolutely jump on here and talk about what that all means. But appreciate you being here. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you listening. And we'll be back with more Top Dogs.